VIPER's been dominating tournaments in professional Valorant on and off since 2021. For just as long, the community's had a love-hate relationship with her. It's no secret that VIPER's been toward the top of Valorant's meta for a while now, and with 2023 champions, that only became more apparent as every single team at the event ran her on at least one map. Even with that in the rearview, VIPER's pick rate has reached an all-time high during this year's kickoffs. Will Minder, a broadcast statistician and prolific dealer of Twitter infographics, highlighted just how extreme it's gotten at the end of last month. Per his post, VIPER ascended to a 79% pick rate with full or near full 100% play rates on multiple maps, and this was before some kickoffs had even finished. Pick rates alone don't indicate a problem though, so here's some added context. If we go region by region looking at every single kickoff, this is what VIPER's win rates look like. 50.9% in Americas, 55.9% in China, 56.2% in EMEA, and 55.9% in Pacific. For context, peak 2022 Chamber barely crested 51% on an intra-patch basis. VIPER's global kickoff win rate was nearly 55%. We definitely have a problem. Hello everyone, I'm Martin Anders Shalazine, title-winning coach you may recognize from teams like Fnatic and Version X, and as we wind up from Madrid, I wanted to take a look at VIPER's impact on the professional Valorant meta, as well as try to give some insight into things that Riot might be able to do about her. Let's take a look. To help understand why she's such an outlier, we're going to lean heavily on my tried and true system of style dynamics. For a crash course in this concept that I've used to develop meta-defining and trophy-winning compositions, I'll put a card up in the corner. The core idea of style dynamics is that all abilities, and by extension all agents, can be put into one of three buckets. Aggro, focusing on tempo and pace, control, focusing on permission and denial, or mid-range, focusing on flexibility and dynamism. Now, I want to direct your attention to this cluster of agents. These agents all have a few things in common. First, they all have abnormally high value floors as well as value ceilings, meaning to get a viable level of value out of them, they take more skill, coordination, or effort compared to other agents, but also the headroom to push their value is also notably above others. Second, and more importantly to this conversation, they're all stylistic hybrids who float dangerously close to the center of the style triangle. They're jack of all trades, masters of none, who can anchor two styled compositions while providing a reasonable splash of the remaining style, and more importantly, are hard to compositionally counter due to their breadth. It's not a coincidence that because of these attributes, all of these agents have been, are, or in my opinion are going to be, meta-defining. You have lab-defining early 2023 Americas with Harbor VIPER, the Fade Flashless Lotus I spearheaded with Fnatic and its 2023 dominance, all this in spite of the fact that Fade already received nerfs trying to address her power level during 2022's Chamber meta. And that leaves us with one more, and if you've watched my recent video on Dive, you know I was already hinting at the dawn of the age of Yoru and Flash duelists. We're already seeing glimpses of that from teams like K-Corp, PRX, Heretics, and Sentinels, and I have full confidence that either at Madrid or immediately after, many more teams are about to follow. The hopeless nerd that I am, I've dubbed this Bermuda Triangle of Valorant balance the Ring of Power. Jokes aside, it's not that agents outside of this circle can't be overpowered or overtuned, it's just that the ones inside of this have a 100% hit rate. Circling back around to VIPER, we know she's an issue, and now we have a decent idea of why, so how can we fix it? If we accept the premise that VIPER's stylistic hybridization is a major source of her strength, then at least in theory, we can address a lot of her balance by pushing her more toward one of the two nearest edges of the style triangle. We can achieve that by removing some of her mid-range attribute, or we can achieve it by removing some of her aggro attribute. To get a better idea of how we would do either of these, let's first look at how we would score VIPER's abilities in the first place. Starting with Snakebite, it gets 1 point in aggro and 2 points in control. The points in control come from the Vulnerable, which is a form of non-catalytic duel facilitation, as well as the util's ability to stall. The aggro point comes from its ability to function as reach, which in style dynamics refers to the ability to help secure a round through either defuse denial or plant denial. Poison Cloud, similar to Snakebite, gets 1 point in aggro due to its ability to facilitate defuse denial, 1 point in control for the Vulnerable, but the final point goes into mid-range due to the reusability of the util. Toxin Screen again gets 1 point in control for vulnerable, 1 point in mid-range for reusability, but it receives its final point in aggro for its ability to map manipulate and redraw battle lines. Finally, Viper's Pit gets a single point in control for its ability to facilitate entrenchment as well as provide dual facilitation via decay. This leaves us with Viper at 3-5-2. So now we look at how we can push Viper in one direction or another. In my opinion, the less likely way to tackle Viper is to rein in her aggro subtype. This would involve taking away some of Viper's reach by removing damage from Snakebite and making it either a decay tick similar to her other utility, or potentially something like armor-only damage while still providing vulnerable. This would force attackers to have gun on post-plant or additional sources of reach, grossly reducing Viper's value in aggro. In the same vein, this change would likely want to be coupled with fuel cost rollbacks from previous nerfs, hence my skepticism that this is the answer. The dev team already leaned away from this sort of stylistic outcome. The other way to tackle her would be to go after her mid-range splash, but I think that may be a touch too far in terms of attacking the agent's power fantasy. This would involve removing her fuel resource and instead providing her with 2 fuel activation windows per round. To try to retain some of the fuel management play pattern that makes up that power fantasy, she would still need to be able to turn off her cloud, her wall, or both early, but she'd still be confined to those set number of activation windows. No more frequent toggling. As one of the longest abusers of Viper in professional play, I'm not in love with either of these, but I do think they represent the best approaches to balancing her that don't involve power creeping her with a replacement. On that topic though, that might be exactly what we're about to get. While ISO and Deadlock's power levels were definitely a miss on launch, I successfully predicted the stylistic alignments of both of them within a very thin margin of accuracy. The third agent I predicted was a mid-range aggro map slicer, the type of true functional competition that Viper has needed for years. The upcoming agent Clove has clear controller implications in their spoilers, their rumored work-in-progress name was Smoke Dancer. Combine the two, and I don't think I'll be too far off the mark this time either. Admittedly, it's looking increasingly likely that the new agent will be an orb smoker rather than a slicer, and given the tenor of the statements during the State of the Agents, it's more likely that they're to be aggro mid-range than mid-range aggro. They may still be able to pull some market share from Viper, especially if Viper receives one of my described changes alongside Clove's release. Regardless of how Viper's tackled, I don't think she's going to last long the way that she is. As much as I hate to say it, the numbers she's putting up are not sustainable. They're completely out of the realm of what would be acceptable, so it's a matter of when, not if. Because of that, I'm excited to see this new agent when they come out and how they're going to shift the landscape. It's precisely here that I think things get kind of spicy, right? I'd love to see down in the comments below what you all think Clove might be bringing to the table, or if there's something that you think could rein in Viper that I didn't come up with here. My personal hypotheses for Clove are mostly out the window given the most recent State of the Agents, but there are still a couple of things that I think could sneak through. 2 things in particular that I want to mention here. The first of which is that we could still end up with a mid-range aggro controller if they give Clove some form of catalytic utility. Now this is dangerous territory. Catalytic util is the domain of duelists and of initiators, but if we dial back the potency enough here, I think giving it to Clove is something that would still be in bounds. They have heavy butterfly undertones in their kit, and something that's sort of a common theme throughout all of nerddom and fantasy is that butterflies, and more specifically moths, are aligned with sleep effects. Imagine Clove has some sort of drowsy linked to a low-potency catalytic utility that's in their kit. It gives them the ability to fight over space after they've cut it off from the rest of the map and leads very heavily into that mid-range corner while still giving aggro undertones. The other thing I'm interested in is how exactly are they going to get out on the front lines as described if they don't have access to that catalytic utility? Are they going to have some sort of Phoenix-style entry by proxy ability? Are they going to have dive despite not being a duelist? Or is it going to be, and this is what I think is most likely, the first agent in the game with post-mortem elements of their kit? What happens if this agent is encouraged to go out on the front lines, die, and still be able to do their job? Would love to hear you guys expand on that and give me your own thoughts down in the comments below. I hope you've enjoyed this conversation, and with any luck, I've earned a like and a subscription. If you really enjoy these sort of macro strategic or theoretical deep dives, I also stream on Twitch at Anders TV, where I'll be doing Madrid watch-alongs, and if you'd like to support me further, I also have a Patreon. On that Patreon, I release agent and premier team composition tier lists every single patch, in addition to premier playbooks and limited private coaching opportunities. With all that said, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.